Hey everyone, Ben Tapper here. Race is a difficult issue to talk about. In fact, it's a topic many people wish to ignore. And if it is brought up, it's often done so in inappropriate or offensive ways. This is true in the church at times, which is unfortunate because the church has a role to play in easing the tensions of our society. We live in a world that is dominated and divided along issues of race and skin color. And the church can play a role in speaking peace into that chaos. Unfortunately, too many of us choose to be colorblind, thinking that if we don't see color, we're not participating in the systems of oppression themselves. In fact, that's not the case. When Dr. King gave his dream speech in Washington, D.C., he didn't envision a colorblind world. He envisioned a world in which the full spectrum was represented. It was a world where little black boys and girls joined hands with little white boys and girls. Dr. King and others like him envisioned a world in which we saw our differences clearly and engaged in dialogue to understand what sets us apart from one another. Dr. King envisioned a world in which our differences no longer created barriers to community. That is the world King dreamt about, and that is the world the church can help bring prophetically into existence. But first, we must stop being colorblind. See, God only calls us to speak about what we know about. Think about the prophets Amos, or Hosea, or Micah. These were all prophets that lived amongst the people they were prophesying to. These were all prophets that knew the oppression they were prophesying against. They spoke about what they knew about. And the same can be said of Jesus, who's the pillar of our faith. Jesus was a brown man living in an impoverished country that was ruled by white colonial powers. See, Jesus had more in common with Eric Garner and Mike Brown than he would with many members of our congregations. That is the uncomfortable truth. That's our reality. See, God calls us to live amongst the oppressed. He calls us to shoulder the weight of injustice as if it were our own. That is our prophetic call. That is our global mission. But we can't do it until we stop being colorblind. A colorblind world is a world in which we do not experience the fullness of our humanity and are thus robbed of the fullness of God's divinity. We are called to help usher in a world in which the full spectrum of colors and differences is represented. We're called to represent the body of Christ in which differences are embraced, in which love overcomes all, and we live out the fullness of our humanity and thus experience the fullness of God's divinity. That is the prophetic and missional call of the church today. That is what we must live into.